Hey there, today I wanted to talk to you about how to make your photos look really fast. The topic came to mind the other day when I was watching some Peter McKinnon videos. If you don't know who Peter McKinnon is, you need to check him out. I got a link to his channel below. He's a really awesome photographer, has a great YouTube channel. Go check him out, go subscribe to him, you're going to learn a lot. And his video that I was watching was called Make Your Photos Move Fast. The effect he had in those photos was fantastic and you'd love doing it. There's just one thing I didn't like about it. It actually requires you to use Photoshop to do this technique. This is not an on-camera technique, but what he's showing you is how to use a Photoshop tool to give it an impression of speed. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with Photoshop. I use Lightroom all the time, very valuable tool for doing work on your photos, for editing them, and Photoshop gives you a huge realm of creativity. Love using it. I've used it a lot of times in the past. I don't use it as much these days. I like to do more just raw photography and just minor color adjustments with Lightroom. But for those of you who may not have Photoshop but want to have that same effect, I'm going to show you how to do that in your camera right now. The basics of this technique is pretty simple, but there are a few settings you really need to understand to make it work well. The first thing you want to do is pick out your main subject. In this case, I'm taking a photo of that red Japanese maple. When you're taking the photo of your subject, you want it to be dead center in the frame. You don't want it to be off to the side, up or down, in the corners, none of that. Focus on dead center. Next, you actually want to be zoomed in. So you need to use the lens that actually does have a zoom. It's going to be able to go in and out, whether it's a rotating zoom like this, you have a push-pull, either one will work. Just make sure the push-pull is set to a loose mode. So you want to be zoomed in, adjust your distance so that it's going to be in the right spot of your frame. And when you're taking the photo, you're going to twist your zoom lens in as you're taking the shot. So as you press the button and the shot is being taken, you'll want to move your zoom in. What happens when you do that is you're going to get that zooming effect like Peter had in his video, but without using Photoshop. His will be a bit different because you can actually set the center point to be perfectly clear and everything else around it will be zoomed. When you do this lens technique, everything is going to be zoomed, but the center point is going to be less zoomed and it's going to get more and more of a zoom effect as you go out. So I think it's got a pretty cool effect. A few more points to note. For this to work, you need a slow shutter speed. So you can't be doing 1/500th of a second and expect this to work. You're just not going to be able to zoom it quick enough. You really want 1/15th of a second or slower. So what that's going to mean is you're likely going to be cranking up your aperture to be very, very narrow, which is fine. But just do know that. If the sun is too bright, cicadas. Did you hear them? I did. If the lighting's too bright and your aperture is still not good enough at your highest setting for the shutter speed you need to use a neutral density filter. This will allow you to get the slower shutter speed and have a lower aperture because it's going to reduce some of the light coming through, but it does not affect the light quality. If you don't have a neutral density filter in your bag, I've got a link below to Amazon. Go pick one up right now because they're useful. Always have one of these for all your main lenses you use. So the case right now, for example, I've got 16 aperture and 1/15th shutter speed. So I could take that photo and do that and get a bit of that zooming effect. Looks cool. How much you zoom it in, that much versus just a little bit like that, is going to affect how much zooming effect you get. So the more you do, the more of the zoom effect you're going to get. The one thing to note when you're doing this handheld at 1/15th of a second or slower, you're moving your camera, so you're going to get a bit of shake. So the other thing you want to consider is actually using a tripod. So have your camera on a tripod, get ready to take the photo, zoom out to the subject. When you're taking the picture, zoom it in, and when it's on a tripod, you're going to get rid of a lot of that shake. You're not going to eliminate it completely, it's going to be there a little bit, but you're going to take some really cool photos. Hopefully this technique will help you out, so you can take photos like those Peter McKinnon ones without having to use Photoshop. You can do it on camera, which is actually a lot of fun. And you can actually twist it up and do some changes. One thing I like to do sometimes is when I'm rotating the lens in, is I'll actually also turn the camera at the same time. And you get a very interesting effect when you do that. You actually get the lines twirling in. So a lot of fun, there's a lot of things you can do with this technique. I hope you like this video. If you do, hit like, share it with friends, and subscribe right now. And if you're interested in my free ebook, click on the link below and get that. Have a good one.